Oh, no, na halame hale he halele no yamahano oh you may neoko hikipuno me aloha 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 mai kako. Welcome to our Halavai virtual cinema, and I think it said 6:30 somewhere, but that was just like the doors open, the virtual doors open. So we're getting started now. The film is just 15 minutes long, so more than a film screening, this is really a ho'o halavai. We have our two communities that we are making one, and we have two different programming that has been happening. One is the Mauli virtual gatherings presented by Halavai. And that is our response to the COVID pandemic and a way for us to stay close together online. And so every Thursday we've been having different events, and this is one of them. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Halavai NYC. We have two more events coming up that you can learn about. That's Thursdays, 7 o'clock New York time. So the other programming that's happening now that's coinciding, our two channels, our two communities, our two currents are coming together, is this TMT shutdown week, which you can learn more about on the Pu'uhuluhulu social media. And that is something we're going to talk about today. So before we continue with the introductions and the menu for this program, I just wanted to offer some thoughts and mana'o on beauty and aloha. And this is just to set up what you're about to see. For the person who may be joining us, has no idea of Mauna Kea or the movement, or for those who are interested to hear a new perspective, I just wanted to offer some mana'o, and then we'll introduce the rest of our guests, our panelists. So let me share my screen. Oh, Onipa'a, I think I need the permission to share. Can you give me permission?
Yes, one.
Onipa'a, Stacy, and I are the newbies of the Halavai board. We joined earlier this year, so it's a great pleasure to put these events on. Halavai.
One moment. There we go. Ken?
Oh, let me try. Okay. A lyric from a beautiful song, The Beauty of Mauna Kea. And I could be forgotten and 1,000 miles away, still I would recall the beauty of Mauna Kea. You know, and as a Hawaii transplant, or if you travel, you know that this song resonates so deeply with you. And we see Mauna Kea in our dreams, yeah. Even for those who maybe visited the islands, the mountain stays with you. And so this idea of beauty is something I was thinking about ahead of this event. And what I've been doing, I've been, joining the AHAs, the weekly AHAs in New York. And I haven't been really in protocol, but my function has been more to have conversations with passerbys in New York. And so for a time, I was relying on other people's flyers, and I was handing out other people's flyers. And then I thought I should just make my own flyer. And so it's been education really to really think about these topics. And in Hawaii, we have an Aloha Aina patriot who's passed, George Helm. You can search that if you're unfamiliar with him. As a Wikipedia entry, George Helm, Aloha Aina patriot. What I loved about George Helm is not only did he spend time with the kupuna, but he was also an intellectually hungry person. And he read Nietzsche, and he read different Western thought, and he compared it to the Hawaiian thought. And so with this concept of beauty, I just wanted to share another quote really quickly. And so thinkers like Burke, Kant, Rousseau, Schiller, Wordsworth, Thoreau, Emerson, and Rilke viewed the beautiful and the sacred as connected, to be rescued together from the human urge to exploit and destroy. The sense of beauty puts a brake upon destruction by representing the summit of Mauna Kea and surrounding lands as irreplaceable. In caring for the environment, we are trying to guarantee the persistence of features like beauty, whose value cannot be priced. That's just paraphrasing some books I've been reading, but I would put that on my flyer and I would start conversations with people in New York City. And really, this goes to this concept of the grid and groups, which I will share 1 second. And so you have these 4 groups of fatalism, like, oh, I don't care, until it affects me, it's really none of my business. You have the hierarchy where you're defaulting to the state, government, authorities. You have egalitarianism, which is closer to the earth, aloha aina. And you have the individual to say, let's have the market decide what is best. And so there's no easy real solution, but what all 4 of these quadrants really benefit from is this nature-centered thinking and this idea of the home. And so when we are talking about aloha aina, this is what we mean. We are talking about a love of our home, a love of our earth, a love of our lahui, aloha aina. And so I share all these thoughts with you because I think today's film, Standing Above the Clouds, is a powerful visual record of aloha aina at a maximum expression. So this is what we have in store for us today. And with that, I would like to bring on our panelists. If you can turn your camera on. Yay. So we'll just do a real brief introduction around the Zoom, what we have, what's on the menu for today. So kumupua, just a brief introduction, we'll go around.
Aloha, o pua case ko uinoa, o mauna awa kia ku mauna. My name is Pua Case. I'm Auntie Pua to many of you, and my mountain is Mauna Kea. Aloha.
We have Jelena.
Aloha kako, my name is Jelena Keen Lee and I'm the director of Standing Above the Clouds. We're so honored to share the film with you, and as we were talking about before, we had imagined that we would be doing a lot of this in person, but you know, things change and we have to be flexible, and so we're really grateful to be able to bring the messages of the Mauna to you through this virtual space and talk about the organizing that is going on virtually.
Mahalo, and partner in crime, Amber.
That's a perfect title. Aloha, my name's Amber Espinosa Jones. I'm the producer and Standing Above the Clouds, calling in from Ohlone territory in the Bay Area.
We have Puanani and Lehuanani. Yeah? Puanani.
Aloha mai kako o Puanani Apollona Brown ko'i noa. I'm calling in today from lands of the Shinnecock Nation, and I am an Indigenous rights activist and organizer with Uprooted and Rising, and retired ballerina. Mahalo for having me today. It's really wonderful to be here.
Mahalo.
Aloha mai kako o Lehunani DeFranco Ko'inoa. I'm on the lands of the Lenape and Canarsie, also known as Brooklyn in New York. I'm also a Native Hawaiian activist for Indigenous rights, one of the New York City Kia'i who held AHA for this past year in solidarity with our brothers and sisters up on Mauna Kea. And I'm also a dancer. Pua and I have a similar trajectory. Mahalo for having us.
Oh, mahalo nui. What a beautiful panel. And o pi'ike kai nani o ko'uinoa, Chris Kato. And yeah, I'm a new board member of Halavai, joined this year, and pleased to be here to share this sharing with you. So what's on the menu today? We'll play the film, and then we'll see you on the other side of the film. We have a Q&A that will be broken up into, so we'll have Kumupua up first, the filmmakers in the middle section. We'll check in with Lehuanani and Puanani, our New York Kia'i, and then leave the end for any questions from our audience. So that is basically the menu for today. And we'll play the film and we'll see you on the other side of the film.
Awesome.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, Chris.
Oh.
Can you please pass me the post rates again? I'll need that to share my screen.
Yeah.
Kalamai, everybody. 2-second delay.
Got it.
Hey, oh, no, come on, yeah, oh, come on,
Mauna Kea is the highest mountain in the world from the seafloor, so the summit stands above the clouds. Its base is anchored deep in the ocean. So when we stand there, we know that we are touching all things on the earth, and we know that that is sacred. So if you have a place like that, that is your Mauna Kea. And then I say, what would you do for that place if it were threatened? I am one of many of Mauna Kea 2014 with the halting of the groundbreaking, and also really that stance we made, all of us, in 2015. So it's Law 1040 and it's Law 369 today. In the movement, in the current movement from when we went up last year on July 12th. And it's really important, at least in our movement, to really know what day it is every day. Because when you do that, you're inspired. One more day, the Mauna is protected. One more day, there is no desecration. One more day, no more construction. One more day, the elemental beings know that we are still here and connected. So I'd like to preface it with that. And then for all of the wahine who are not here today on this call, but who are a vital part of the film, because they were wahine and are wahine that stand with us on the front line, stand with us in the court system, in their communities, mothers, grandmothers, and daughters. It's not easy, as you can see from the film, to make that total commitment to be in every phase as much as we can, be 24/7, standing for something that we consider to be sacred, that we revere and respect. As a grandparent, as a chief, the Mauna is our leader and our protector, our corrector, our teacher, and our guide. So to those women who aren't on screen today, but who are ever present every day doing what they can, and for the multitudes of women who stood on the ala at that closing scene of the film, and all those who stood around the world, and for the men who stand by our side, sometimes in the front, sometimes in the back, but always with us and at our sides. Mahalo nui. We honor every single person who's standing for the mountain, past, present, and definitely into the future, because it's not over. So I believe that I am speaking first about Chris. What would that be? What would you like me to share about? Is that good?
I think what you shared is great, because you're keeping everyone and everything at the forefront of your mind, and that includes the court dates and hearings and things. You always have an eye on what's happening in the courts. You have a unique perspective, because it's not only that side of the law that you're on in the courts, but also on the other side of the law, police in Hawaii. And being that police brutality is so much in the news globally, I think Hawaii is unique in a certain way that a lot of our ohana are police officers, and we live in a place of aloha, and there's the concept of kapu aloha, and it's very complex, but I thought if you could touch upon just a little bit of how different or not so different the conversations we're having around our police, especially in Hawaii,
Sure.
of reality on the U.S. mainland. Yeah, in your experience.
So this week, if you're tuning in to the Aole TMT, you know, the TMT shutdown week, that is one celebrating this 1 year of no TMT construction on the mountain. You'll see that one of the days early on in the week, the topic was on demilitarization of the police. And so I'll touch a little bit upon that in the fact that, you know, we're just people here, just like anywhere else. We're teachers, all of us who kind of galvanized the beginning of the movements by organizing the Pu'uhonua with the Royal Order of Kamehameha. We were all teachers. So we're teachers and we're people, mothers and fathers, daughters and sons, aunties, uncles, and here we are having to face, like anywhere else, police and sheriffs and deputies. And so when that happens, as it does in Hawaii, many of us are new to that. Very few of our people actually have had to face that before. And yes, we did that in 2015 as well. So there was a relationship, if you will, between us and at least DLNR officers, county police. We had known them through the years because not only did we stand on opposite sides in 2015, but also through the contested case hearing that followed, there was a presence there. So when you have to then stand on the roadway with your own police officers from your moku is one thing, because they are there still to do their job. And really, we don't expect any less from them, but we do ask for compassion. We do ask for kapu aloha. We ask for fairness, but we understand that they are there to do their job as we are there to fulfill our kuleana. But when you begin to see police officers, in addition to that, that come in full riot gear, that are there to do what it will take to take that road back, then you begin to understand. You begin to understand why there is a call out for demilitarization, because of the mindset that is evident when they even come upon you in that area. Wherever you are standing. And I had been to Standing Rock. So when I knew that they had purchased an LRAD, when I knew that they were bringing in the tear gas and all of that, I said to myself on that morning, how could it be? How could it be that we as a Native people and our supporters and our allies are here to protect everything we hold dear? To protect not just a sacred mountain, but to protect our water, to protect the most sacred of what we have left. That here in Hawaii, where it would be known to everyone around the world as perhaps a paradise, a landscape that is filled with beauty and culture and hula, all of these things, that there would ever be a moment in time when we are looking at what is approaching us by the hundreds and think, how is it that we are now to be punished for just doing what is absolutely necessary as part of our kuleana, as part of our responsibility, as part of our privilege. So I would say that in that moment, you really understand what the potential for being harmed is. And so, yes, when I have stood on the continent is different from perhaps standing here at home. But the officers are beginning to look the same. What they bring with them can still harm you, hurt beyond anything you could imagine. And who knows what would happen the next time. So we are actively looking at that as we are looking at everyone else around the world. That's real. When you stand, that's real. But there's something about the ground you are standing on, as you know, all of you who are probably tuned in, perhaps you have stood in your own places, perhaps you have stood for your water, your mountains, your life ways. There is something about the need to protect for your children and your grandchildren that you will take that chance. We took that chance. And so did everyone else, because you cannot help but stand. So this week is a really important week for us, because we are remembering and we are celebrating that the Mauna is protected for one more year, but it's not over. And all of these things that we are talking about, whether it's kupuna arrests and dropping the charges, whether it's halting the TMT before we need to go back up there, because honestly, just in the newspapers in the past couple of days, those who are planning still to build, they know what they are up against. They know that we will do whatever it takes to protect our mountain. They know what construction will destroy in a fragile ecosystem, but still they would come. And so with that, at the end of this week, there will be, tomorrow and Saturday, there will be some requests to everyone to help us at this juncture of where we are right now. We are down from the Mauna because they have said they are not going to construct until, or attempt to construct until next year. And we are saying to them, you will never construct. But in that, there will be some actions that we will ask everyone to participate in, so that all together, we can halt this project and vision for the next generations on what is the best thing for our Mauna.
Mahalo nui. Mahalo Kumapua. Kumapua and I also share something in common, in that we have a common kumu'oli. We both learn Hawaiian chant from Ulani Kanakole Kanahele. And so, you have quite a few chants that are included with the aha and composed for the Mauna. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to ask you, the process of composing chants for the Mauna. If you could share a little bit with us.
The chants on the aha and the chants beyond the aha, surrounding the aha, they come in different ways from different people. We were honored for the kumuhula and for others who shared chants, songs, dances that became really the anchor, the backbone of the protocols, so that we would remain focused, we would remain always reminded in reverence for the place that we stood on in the Vauakua, and our conduct, our behavior, all were tied to the chants. So for myself, I'm born and raised on Mauna Kea, on the front side of the slopes of the Mauna. My father was in charge of water for Parker Ranch. So I spent my whole life long on the mountain. You could say that I was a water protector from when I was born, because my dad, looking for water, caring for water, taking care of the ranch lands, it was just part of who we are. So you are in tune. What gives you the words and who gives you the words and the feeling and the essence of what you then compose are the elements themselves, the deities, the akua, that if you still believe they are still there for you. The experiences of what we went through, like the chants, Oli Kukulu, Heahalahe Kukulu, the pillars, came from standing on June 24th, 2015, and watching and participating and being so proud of each line as they held their place as pillars for the Mauna. And I thought on that day, we are more than Kanaka. We are the Pohaku. We are the Ahu. And we are the Mauna. And from there, and that's just an example, there are so many composers, they all look around them at the experience, they all ask for the guidance. The words come from the deities and the Mauna herself. And then you find a creation that you hope will be embraced by those who learn the choreography, chant it alongside with you and feel it. Feel the essence of what you are trying to say, and that it lifts you. And all Native people, when I've stood with them in their movements, and they have their own songs and their own chants and their own prayers and their traditional instruments, that is what we rise to each day. That is what lifts us up. That is what carries us. That's what anchors us down. That's what dictates our conduct. That's what grounds and anchors us. The place of the chant and the dance, at least on the ala, essential to the way in which our movement transformed itself for the entire 8 months that we were there, but long before that, to the many years that we have stood, always anchored in that. And yes, Pua Kanakaole, Kanahele, and her ohana, my halau members, other halau, other kumu, they came and they solidified and they stood and they said, here's a chant, here's this one here, the time is changing, here's a new one here. And you became the chants that you were chanting. You became that in those moments.
Mahalo nui. And so from chants to filmmaking, and we'll have an opportunity to open up for questions at the end, but we're going to move on to our filmmakers, Jelena and Amber. So, I just want to share my screen really quickly. Oh, I'm disabled. Could I have the host again?
Just wanted to say really quickly too that the beautiful music that we heard in the waiting room was Auntie Pua's daughter Havani, and she does another, form of taking in everything happening on the Mauna and creating. And her album is available now on all streaming platforms. And I think, Amber, maybe you could link to her music too if anyone is interested.
Yeah, and the music videos you directed.
Absolutely, that'll all be available for everybody after this.
Okay, so I'll just share 3 images real briefly. So a reminder that this film, this short, Standing Above the Clouds, is on the PBS Short Film Festival, and every view counts. You want to give it a view and share. And here we have filmmaker Jelena at the Sundance Film Festival. And this is your production company, Breaktide Productions, with a focus on Wahine filmmakers, female filmmakers. So Can you share us the origin of the title of the films? How was it came to be called Standing Above the Clouds?
Yes, definitely. We were called to tell this story and work with Auntie Pua and the Kia'i because we're really passionate about mother-daughter relationships and female activists, and wanting to really give female activists the portrayal that we strongly believe they deserve. I think throughout history, a lot of times social movements are not as recognized as they should be, and when they are, a lot of times it's the male leaders that are recognized, even though we know there have always been women involved in movements and doing a lot of the work that perhaps isn't as glamorous and can be a lot more difficult emotionally, being a caretaker figure. And that female leadership, it's very complex, and it involves, you know, doing things with your family. I think there's a line in the film towards the end when Auntie Pua says, when I think, would I leave my girls at home and like have them do something else? Like, no, of course, they're gonna come with me and be in this movement with me. So that's really what we wanted to explore, both the beautiful, enriching, healing moments of standing alongside your daughter, and then also the challenging moments where, you know, you've been traveling a lot and you're really tired, and sometimes there's little squabbles between you, or it's just, you know, your role as a mother and daughter, but then also on the front line, but then also for your community, but then also for other communities, can get complicated. So we wanted to show kind of the different aspects of what that experience is like. And we first met Auntie Pua in 2017, and we see this project as a partnership between us and Auntie Pua and the Kia'i, and we knew we wanted it to be about mothers and daughters, but we iterated and came up with the idea with Auntie Pua and chose Mehana and Lena Ala's family, who you see in the film as well, with Auntie Pua's advice. And she was the one who made those initial connections between the team and those families too. So I think that partnership has been extremely core to the whole process of the film. And Amber and I are childhood friends, and we grew up in movement spaces in Oakland and in the Bay Area. And we both grew up with strong activist mothers as well, who taught us about all these women leaders and that and about movements and the importance of standing up for what you believe in. So I think that's also why we really wanted to tell this, and being authentic and true to the mother-daughter angle of the story. It was my mom actually that came up with the title of the film, and it was really inspired by the movement in 2015 when the Kia'i were on the summit, and we're holding down the Mauna from the summit, and anyone who's been to the Mauna and been up to the summit knows that you are above the clouds, and it kind of lends itself to the Vauakua, like realm of the gods feeling, and also just that you are physically above the clouds. And so what does it mean to stand for something in that realm? Yeah, so that's how we came upon the title. Amber, I don't know if you want to add anything about that.
No, I don't think so. But yeah, it was so beautiful. I got to go up to the summit a couple years ago before the most recent stand. And it's really powerful. We just could have sat there forever and kind of like looked. So yeah.
Kalamai, I think Chris is frozen at the moment.
I couldn't tell.
But Chris, just start talking when you get back on. Oh, I think you're on, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my Brooklyn Wi-Fi. So it was a collaboration, and you had a crew, you had a film crew, you had other camera people and other collaborators that were supporting you during the filming. And could you talk a little bit about how you managed the ethics of that? What was okay to film, what was not okay to film, and how you managed that?
Yeah, definitely. We actually operated with an extremely small crew. I myself filmed most of the film, and we had another amazing cinematographer Rhea Puri, who was with us at some time, and we also used footage from Mikey, who is also on the Mauna, who has another really incredible film about the Mauna that will be playing as part of the TMT Shutdown Week of Action. So you can watch it on Facebook, and all the information for all that stuff is on the Pu'uhuluhulu website. And so yeah, we definitely tried to keep the crew small, just because the spaces that we were entering in were so sacred and so sensitive. And the way we view it is kind of through the language of consent. And it's that consent is something that is ongoing. So even if something is okay at one time, it doesn't mean it's going to always be okay, or it doesn't mean it will necessarily be okay in the future. But sometimes there were really set rules. Like for instance, in the current stand in 2019, there would be really set rules around ceremony of like, you know, in the beginning, no one can film. And so of course we respected that too. For the areas around the kitchen and certain parts of the camp, there was like, no one should be filming these areas. So of course we wouldn't film them either. But then it's really important for us to ask permission, even when it's not explicitly that you can't film something. So just checking in and making sure like, it is okay to film. And then another way we work through that process is not actually in the filming, but it's in the post-production. And something that, and we worked really collaboratively in that post-production process to finalize the final film. And something that Auntie Pua said that I'll never forget, and that I bring up on panels like this, is she said, it's your art, but it's our life. And that's something that I carry with me to inform these filmmaking decisions, because, you know, it is our art, and this is our, you know, it's what we see as our activism. And Ilima Long, who is also a really powerful Kia'i, put forth this framework of the Kia'i and protesters, yes, you know, around the world are doing physical intervention. They're physically blocking construction trucks. They're, you know, physically, you know, having confrontations with the police, you know, physically sitting outside of the Attorney General's home to demand the arrest of Breonna Taylor, like we saw on the continent a few days, maybe that was just yesterday. And then as storytellers and as artists, we're doing narrative intervention. And we're reclaiming the narrative around what's going on, around what leadership looks like, and around what these movement spaces look like. And so she was really talking about how those two things go hand in hand. And sometimes if there's just physical intervention and not that narrative intervention, then the story about what's going on can be misconstrued and can be twisted by media that oftentimes has similar interests with the things that we're trying to fight or to stand against. And so working closely with activists and making sure that that narrative intervention is really aligned with their goals and feels comfortable for them, and is something that, you know, they could show to all of their ohana and feel proud showing, and not think even the smallest thing, like we wouldn't want them to, you know, feel uncomfortable about. So that's also how we negotiate what to film and what not to film. It's like in that final version that goes out into the world, we want to make sure that everyone is okay with every single thing that's in there. Another thing that comes to mind is there was one scene with Leinaala and her daughter, and they're doing hula and chanting on the lava, looking over the water. And I remember there had been this little part where her daughter is kind of adjusting her seat before they start. And we were like, oh, it's so sweet. It shows, you know, her mom is teaching her. And then Auntie Pua was like, no, that's really bad hula etiquette. I don't think we can have that in there. Everyone's going to see that and think that girl does not know how to do hula. She does not know her proper etiquette. So we took it out, and that's the kind of stuff where I think the trust between us and that collaboration really comes into play, because ultimately we don't want it to be screened at some big event and for people to be thinking any little things like that detract from the overall story.
Amazing. Yeah, not easy, not easy. And then in terms of just the physical production, could you speak a little bit about just caring for the gear, the camera in extreme cold, extreme hot, handling the SD cards? What was the workflow like out on the field?
I love that you asked this question. No one has asked us this so far. And I kind of wish that Kapule was here too, Antipua, because we talked about this a lot. Kapule is Antipua's youngest daughter, and she's a photographer. And so we would oftentimes be together. We sometimes joke that we're the Pua Case media team. And we were, together at a few Indigenous Peoples Days and traveling around and on the Mauna together. And there was a whole Mauna Kea media team as well. So luckily there was a lot of people, to support and to discuss these things with. And there were generators in terms of charging, but the extreme temperatures could be rather difficult. And I think there are some innovations that could definitely be made on that front. And I remember because, if you've been to the Mauna, you know that the weather can change so quickly. And sometimes you experience all of the seasons in one day, and sometimes you experience all of the seasons in 1 hour. And a lot of times at ceremony, there would be certain chants, certain moments, and the rains would come in. And you could feel the elemental beings really responding to the ceremony, which was so beautiful. But also, if you're holding things that shouldn't really get wet, it was a little bit challenging. So we would have like some rain protectant covering, and honestly just try and like get ourselves wet before getting the equipment wet. And I think everyone that lived on the Mauna figured out their good waterproof outfit. And I was just reflecting on some of the photos and videos that I have, and I saw a video that I had of myself being like 2 weeks in, and I finally have my outfit that's completely waterproof. So a lot of that stuff carried over for the equipment as well. And we were really lucky to have this kind of little hale that a lot of the media stuff could be housed in, and then also our tents and cars as well to keep things safe from all the different weather.
Amazing. Quite the challenge. And I went to college with Ilima Long and danced hula with her. And so aloha Ilima from New York. So we're going to move to our last section with our New York kia'i, and then open the floor to the audience. Thank you for everyone who is still on the Zoom. And so let me just share my screen real quickly. So here we have an image 1 year ago. One of many stands, but here was quite a large turnout. And then one of our very last ahas, this was January of this year. And exciting things on the horizon with Uprooted and Rising New York. So I wanted to give the floor now to our New York kia'i, Huanani and Lehuanani. Could you share with us why is it important to hold AHA in New York City and that experience, whether in Union Square or Washington Square, what have you, or online now on Zoom?
Yeah. So we started, our first gathering was July 12th. So all of us have been paying attention the entire time, trying to make sure that we knew what was going on. And the moment that we heard that the equipment was going to start going up the mountain, we tried to organize ourselves just to raise awareness in New York. So I want to give credit to that. That was led by Na'uwiwi Kainakenga, who is no longer with us in New York. She's back home in Hilo now. But she started those rallies, and we carried them through every single Friday for about a year now. And we eventually transitioned to Washington Square Park. There was also a lot of other rallies going on in Union Square with our brothers and sisters from Puerto Rico, and a lot of great chants combining those two movements, actually. We would always uplift each other's voices, so that was always really incredible. And we decided to move to Washington Square Park, where we could give them space and where we could have our space as well. And Auntie Pua, I believe it was back in 2015, she came to New York for Indigenous Peoples Day and taught us one of the hulas, Ohanau, Kimona. So a bunch of us knew that. So we started with that. And then as we went along, I think almost most of us went up to the Mauna at some point. So we carried the aha back with us. And it was, you know, when you're up there doing aha 3 times a day, it really settles in your body. And so to come back to New York and not have that was really difficult. It was difficult to not, you know, be able to drive up. So we decided that that's how we needed to hold space, and dealing with the many people who would come through, whether, you know, there were disagreements about what we were standing up for, or people who didn't understand our flag. We're always carrying that message of kapuloha, and always hearing, you know, like if you're in an interaction, like what would Auntie Pua do? And knowing that she's always watching you, so you really have to hold yourself accountable to that. And creating space with the people who resided in Washington Square Park, bringing them in and them sharing songs with us as well, which was always really beautiful. Sharing space with the other musicians. At some point, we finally got on a good line with an accordion player. He always waited until we finished aha before he started his bit. Creating space for wedding proposals that would happen in Washington Square Park, the whole 9 yards. And yeah, it was just, you know, no matter what the weather was, like Delena was saying, you know, the weather was changing constantly up in Mauna Kea. So we were prepared for that in New York. Bring extra socks, bring extra gloves. You know, who's gonna stand by the signs, who's gonna watch the stuff. Chris always came every single moment right when we started AHA, and would start handing out flyers and talking to people. So we really, you know, got this coordinated and somewhat organized movement. And then when COVID happened, we were just about to have an event on Mauna Kea with a movement research dance performance group in New York. And I had gotten in touch with Jelena because we wanted to get permission to film this or to screen this film. That got canceled, so then we moved our AHA to online, and that was an adjustment as well. We have a lot of funny videos of us trying to, okay, do I listen on my computer so everybody can hear? Does everybody just put the videos on Hulu up? But once Lanakila started doing AHA, you know, we were able to sort of organize a little bit better. And then once the uprising started, we started to look at, Pua and I started to look at transitioning to what organizing the New York City Kia'i and what that really means going forward. So we can talk about that a little bit later.
Awesome.
Mahalo. Puanani, do
Yeah, so
you want to share?
definitely. I think first I just also want to thank you for your work. That's such a beautiful film. I think the first time we got a chance to see it in New York, it wasn't quite in the final phases. So I'm excited to finally see the full final work at some point. It's really, really wonderful, and got chicken skin tears a little bit. So just wanted to thank you for that. And in Kumupua case, always so wonderful to see you. And I think for me, grounding this in AHA is really grounding it in our culture. And I think that is just such an important thing about this whole movement. And for me, I think growing up on the East Coast and not really, I think my mom tried to teach us hula when we were young, and we were like, oh, she's really tough. So we're like, ballet's actually easier than what you, but it was really a wonderful chance for me to finally get a chance to be dancing. And I remember the first time that I went to Mauna Kea, and the first time I went on the road, I was nervous, and then all of a sudden it just became very natural, and was just a wonderful opportunity to reconnect in really such an amazing way, to be on Mauna Kea, reconnecting in that way with my lahui and with my ohana. And so I think for our stand in New York City and grounding it in that was also just a wonderful way for us to build our community. I think actually the first time that I reconnected with Lehua was at Indigenous Peoples Day 2018. And that's the first time that I met Antipua case as well. And I saw a Mauna Kea jacket, and something told me to go and introduce myself. And so then fast forward to last year, July 15, July 12th, when we stood again for the first time for the Mauna. That's when Lehu and I really reconnected, and then just have been now seeing each other like every day at this point. So I think there's something about just having that cultural practice that is definitely like core to being who you are as a Native person as well. It's like, if our Mauna is not there, if hula and our language is taken from us, then who are we at that point? And so I think just perpetuating who we are in that sense is just, it's so powerful. And I think one thing I was reflecting on earlier this week with Lehua is the connection between New York and my current work now that I'll talk about a little bit later with the UC Divest TMT campaign. We first launched it, or I first became involved through Uprooted and Rising at UCLA's campus, and it was through AHA and grounding it in that practice with Kumu Mikilani. And it was just I think that was such an important way to launch my involvement in this campaign through this, it's a sacred mission, and it's a sacred space. And I think that really solidifies that.
Mahalo. We are who we need. So maybe we can shift now to a little talk about, I should say Nauivi NYC was established by two NYU students, Kulani and Jarrett, and they are back home in Hawaii. Then Kaina and myself took over, and now Kaina is home. And then just a big mahalo and aloha to all the kia'i that have stood with us in New York City. I can't tell if I'm staggering. So big mahalo and aloha to all that have stood with us in Manhattan, and so maybe we can talk a little bit about where the movement is going now as far as Uprooted and Rising New York, and how they can get in touch.
Yeah, definitely. And I also want to expand a little bit on, it's really beautiful to know that Amber and Jelena know each other from so long ago, because Pua and I actually went to ballet school when we were children, 2 years ahead of me. And I remember it well because she was an incredible dancer, but also our mothers were obviously the only two Native Hawaiians backstage, and they would always chat. And so, we went our separate ways, and then years later to meet up with her again at Indigenous Peoples Day. It doesn't seem like a coincidence at all. So it's really beautiful to be in a space where there are so many deep, deep connections. And I think that, when we were looking at the NYC Kia'i, we were wanting to organize in a more cohesive fashion, and then COVID hit. So I had been seeing Pua's work at Uprooted and Rising for a while now, and I started to get involved with the UC Divest TMT campaign and a few other campaigns, and we decided to start our New York City branch in order to create a space where we could organize more, not just for our Lahui back in Hawaii, but also for our New York City community. What is our relation to the Black Lives Matter movement? What is our relation to mutual aid? How are we holding ourselves accountable as settlers on this land? So that has been really exciting to be able to launch this, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I think definitely our experiences on the Mauna we're going to carry with us forever. And I think that, being able to be there with family especially is extremely important. I went with my brother and my cousin, and I remember when I had left, it was really heartbreaking for me, but I knew I had to come back to prepare for Indigenous Peoples Day. And I had a dream about the Bauna and an owl, a pueo, and which is one of our aumakua, and it was above the clouds. We were standing above the clouds, and it was just a complete starry night, and there was nothing on top of the Mauna. And I was there with my family, with my lahui, and I immediately called my brother the next day, and I was like, oh my goodness, I had this dream. And he was like, oh my goodness, I was just in a class with Havane at the Pu'uhuluhulu University, and the pueo had swooped over them, and they all stopped to watch. So that was an incredible connection. And then a couple days later, I called my mother. I said, oh, I had this dream. In Keone, he had this moment. And she goes, what? Oh, I just had the other night I was driving and an owl flew right over my car. So, you know, these things aren't, for us, they're not, they don't happen by chance. There's a purpose to them. So I really see all of these connections happening for a reason. And I see my connection with Pua and being able to ground with our New York City Kia'i as a reason. And always, you know, checking ourselves, making sure that we're pono in everything that we do. I think we're constantly, we're constantly making sure, and again, constantly, you know, making sure that our kapuna, that they would be proud of us and that we're following them and constantly following their lead. But yeah, I'll leave it to Pua to talk more about UNR and Upward Rising and New York branch.
Great. Thanks.
Mahalo.
Yeah, mahalo. So, yeah, I think, I guess one thing that's important to note about the UC campaign, so I'm with Uprooted and Rising, and I've been working with this, it's a movement for food sovereignty that's really works by challenging higher education. And so our mission is to end higher ed support for big food and white supremacy in the food system and to direct the energy of our generation towards food sovereignty. So for myself, I have a personal stake in this, having gone to Harvard, and when I told them that I wanted to write my senior thesis about food sovereignty and the importance of water, the cultural importance of water, I was really dismissed by my academic advisor. And I won't go into detail about this, but I wrote it anyways. And, you know, if nothing else, I just wanted to produce something that future students could point to and build upon, because I was environmental science and public policy. And so to be told that my whole worldview and my people's experience in environmental justice was not relevant to that department was completely bogus in my mind. So so I wrote it and I won an award, and I just, it's really important to me that Native students and, you know, Black, Indigenous, and people of color just are empowered to fight for the changes that they know are necessary. And so it's awesome just being able to work with the amazing students at UC who are just so brilliant and dedicated. And so I think one thing that's important to name is that the students were already self-organizing before I came in and became involved. And I noticed that on social media. And I was like, okay, well, like, you know, I'm with this organization, and, you know, we have trainings, we have resources, and, you know, maybe this is something that we can throw our force behind on the West Coast. And so my colleagues were behind it, and I then knew I can't just move in without actually like having permission and doing it in the right way. And so I actually went to the Mauna first in August, and then I went again in late December with my mom. And that was also really important to me because she's a huge inspiration for myself, having, you know, hearing from you all about your family and their impact on you. She was a Native Hawaiian rights activist and one of the founding members of PKO and Protect Koho'olawe Ohana. So I always, you know, grew up hearing those stories and just knowing how much difference a small group of activists who were extremely committed could make for generations to come. And so I went with her, and I spoke with Noenoe Wilson a little bit and told her about this idea, and like, I know it's food sovereignty and it's a little different than this total thing, but it's also connected because water and so she was like, oh, you know, you need to talk to Pua Case because she has all the contacts in California. And so just by chance, or, you know, maybe nothing happens by chance, but the last day when I had to leave, Pua Case arrived. And so I was able to catch you before I left the Mauna, and you said, message me on Facebook. So that's how all this started. And so I got in touch with the students, and yeah, the rest is history. And they're doing amazing work. And it's just a privilege to be involved. And so I think in terms of like where we're at now, so excited that Lehuanani is involved and doing amazing work with us. And I think everything's kind of growing and solidifying. And so for over a year now, at every Board of Regents meeting, the students have been giving public comment and calling on the regents to divest from TMT. And at this point, you know, there's been such a strong opposition to the UC's involvement that it's actually reached a point where we've gotten inside word, it hasn't been publicly announced yet, that the TMT will be on the agenda at the next Board of Regents meeting. And that is going to be July 28th through 30th. And so mark your calendars. It'll be really important for folks to email the regents, sign up for public comment if you feel the kuleana to speak on this issue. And we, you know, are still really working to pressure the regents and the president to provide enough time, like sufficient time for this issue to be expressed by Native Hawaiians, by the protectors, and the people who are being impacted most by this project, to have the chance to fully express the importance of this issue. And so this is still sort of up in the air, what this will look like, who will be presenting both sides. I don't think it'll be a vote just yet. It's a fact-finding meeting, but yeah, I think I'm really hopeful that good things are coming out of this, you know, moment of change, global awakening that we're in. And just another note on the UC front is they just announced a new president. And the UC president actually has the power to end UC's involvement in TMT at any time. And so the new president is Dr. Michael Drake. I believe it's Michael, is his first name. And so we're really hoping that he'll be an ally and that he will make the right decision. But we need to obviously continue the pressure and really you know, hold the UC's hand to make the right decision, because we know if we do not, you know, the business will continue as usual. So I have a form that was in the beginning of the webinar today. We have a bit.ly, maybe someone could put it in the chat. It's bit.ly/ Mauna Kea Justice, all lowercase, and there's a form if you want to continue to be involved or be in, sorry, if you want to be informed with developments in the campaign, or even start organizing if you're in California, that's one way to do it. And there's also, I put in the emails of the regents, and just a few action steps as well in the form.
Awesome. Mahalo nui. So before we close and chant, we wanted to open up the floor to our audience. And so in the chat, you can send it privately. Any question, there's a drop-down menu, all panelists. Or if you want just to share with everyone in the room, you can select all panelists and attendees. And we welcome any questions that maybe Onipa'a Stacy has been collecting. Any burning questions for our panelists?
While we're waiting for that, can I just make one announcement?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to, you know, on the TMT shutdown, I'm actually looking at my phone right now just to make sure I get this right. But today we do have a talk on Pu'uhonua o Pu'uhuluhulu Facebook page and really cross-post to a lot of other pages. But today is Return Stolen Hawaiian Lands with John Osorio, Kaho'okahi Kanuha, and hosted by Camille Kalama. So, and then tonight at 6:30, they're going to show Standing Above the Clouds one more time. So if on the Zoom you couldn't quite get that, you know, the feeling of it, you know, Zoom's kind of hard to watch a film on, I have to say, but to really get the feeling of it, or maybe just you want to see it one more time, that's on tonight as well. Then tomorrow, I'm really going to ask you folks just to be ready for an action that will be announced, and to share it far and wide. And that is the end of our week on the actions, but definitely not the end of actions, because we have a ways to go to stop this. And for all of you here, and also everybody out there who's doing even one thing, you know, start easy. Wear your mauna on Wednesdays. Boom. You got one right there. You know, you don't have to be like me and have to wear it every day since 2013. You know what I mean? But, you know, like one day a week. Really, we should be wearing our mauna every day this week because it is the week. But one day, just, yeah, all those things, you know, that's how we begin to be a presence. Because if we're not a presence, we disappear. And if we disappear, they'll be here. So we are the mauna. Be the mauna. Be a presence for the mauna. Be the heart of the mountain. You know, all of those things are really critical, because he pala mauna awake luna. If we haven't learned anything throughout these 10 years, is Mauna Kea has brought us all together. If not for that mountain, none of us would know each other. I mean, 90% of who we know right now in these past recent years is because of Mauna Kea, and really shared on social media. Social media can be the best or the worst. It's not the platform itself, it's a people, you know, how we treat it, how we interact on it, how we use it is so important. And I hope that we are using it to unite, to galvanize, to solidify, and to do the work that we need to do, not just for Mauna Kea, but for every place that we need to protect, because our very lives depend upon it. So I just know we could, you know, lose this very moment just to say it continues right after this. It continues. It continues throughout the weekend. It's continued for 10 years. Whether we knew it or not, whether you were involved or not, the TMT has been an issue for 10 years. And before that, those who knew, we want to always recognize them. So before a question, I just want to say, let's recognize all those who stood before 10 years. If you watch Temple Under Siege, you know their names. You know, they were here long before. The arrestees, we're trying to put a list together of every single person who's been arrested for Mauna Kea. It's more than who's been arrested this time. Esteemed Kupuna, of course, but in 2015, there were arrests as well. And not just the 31, but really throughout that year. So we're gonna lift the voices, and arrest is not what we want. Arrest is sometimes necessary, but that's not our end goal. But we have to do what's necessary sometimes, and sometimes it takes that. But let's not do that, because the court system is not our friend. And it ties us into all kind of entanglements when our energy should be spent on our families, what we hold dear, and stopping what is pono'ole on our lands and in our lives. So mahalo for that.
Mahalo nui. Oh, we have a comment in the chat. Bernard Granger, two words stood out, sacred and beauty. Having both American and African American blood, I understand this. My question straightforward, who is behind this project and invasion? Thank you for awakening my interest.
So there's 5
I
countries.
think it's a combination of, yeah.
Oh, sorry, 5
Right.
countries.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the beauty of this. If you want to talk beauty, you're talking about a people. And when I say a people, of course, I'm beginning with the people who are genealogically linked to this Mauna, the people that come out of this mountain. So, but it's everybody, because it is the world's highest mountain from the seafloor. So that also is why Mauna Kea is so important, so pivotal. And this is the land of aloha. So that is the energy. But it's 5 countries that a people and all people have been able to withstand for 10 years. And if that's not incredible, I don't know what is. You know, usually it's a corporation here or a business here or an institution there, or perhaps one country here or there. But we're talking about Japan, China, India, Canada, and California by way of Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation and the university system there in California. We're talking about 5 countries and people. That is the power of people when it is pono. Pono will prevail because it has to, because these mountains speak to one another. They are the energetic grid that holds us all together. They are the life-giving forces of our water sources. They must remain with the knowledge we have and the responsibility we have that we now know. If we do not hold on to the last of these sacred places, then who are we? We may as well just lay down. Just lay down and let them take it all. And we will not do that, not now and not ever. So thank you for your question. And that is 5 countries, and we are still here.
Mahalo nui. Yeah, and it's really not anti-science, it's just the wrong location. And so we're not opposed to the scientific endeavor, but it's the wrong location.
And
we
you
have
know
some
what,
more.
Chris? I'd also say we are, however, against anything, be it science or anything else that destroys a people's land base, and by way of that destroys culture, health, well-being of a people of any place that is doing whatever they can because they know that place is vital to all of the whole entire planet. So yes, we are not anti-astronomy, but those who are in the scientific community have to take responsibility for the damage, the collateral damage that occurs in the name of science. So there's a responsibility there when you are destroying a people by way of destroying their landscape. You better take a second look.
Right. We have some more question. Keone is asking about what was behind the decision for the kupuna to get arrested first.
Sure, I can answer that. I was up there this morning, and there's actually another film that has interviews by the kupuna themselves, and I'm hoping that we also bring out and show, where one of the kupuna sums it up really well. She says, "This is our time. You folks young yet." And she calls out to Kaho'okahi Kanuha and she says, "You Kanuha, you will not be arrested today. I will be arrested today if need be, because our young ones don't belong in that system or in jail, and we old already. It's our turn." And it's more than that to me as I watch them decide to take their places, and really all the kupuna who didn't get arrested that day, but also were there ready, who filled the seats when the kupuna were arrested. Someone sat down in their place. And what was happening that day on a larger scale was that our elders were taking their place, their esteemed spot where they deserved to be, where they knew they had to be. They were going to take their place, and hopefully none of the younger generation would need to do that. So it wasn't just a sacrifice for them. They rose to that. It's not that they wanted to get arrested, but this was their day, because for many of them, they had never had the chance to really stand for anything in their upbringing, in their time, even though they saw Hawaii change over time, perhaps for whatever reason. Very few of them perhaps were actually in that activist upbringing where they had the privilege of doing that over a lifetime. Some of these kupuna were first time. They were going to sit in their seat, but they knew that for this mauna, they would do that. And the words from them as they took their places were this: when they come for us, this is my moment. And I was on the microphone that day, so they said, we will tell you what we are going to ask you to do while we are being carried out, while we are walked out, while we are in a wheelchair being wheeled out. We will tell you what to do. And some of them wanted us to be silent. And we just cried, but we understood that because it was their moment. And we didn't want to take away from that. And some of them said, chant for me, and called out specific chants, sing for me. Or they gave us messages and said, don't you lose this mountain now. Stay strong, as they were carried off into the van. I think for me in that moment, I didn't weep at all. I was too proud to. And what I mean by that is not too proud to weep. I was too proud of the kupuna to even think about it. My entire, every part of my being was with each one saying, this is your moment, not mine, not anyone else's. This is your moment. And it's one, till today, it's one of the most beautiful actions I've ever been involved in. And if you were watching it unfold, perhaps you didn't understand that. Why we were quiet, why we were crying only then, why we were chanting only for this one. You had to have been there to have received the instruction straight from the kupuna. This is what I want you to do as I am making my stand. It was incredible. And from then on, we knew that it would never be the same for us, because we were walking in the footsteps of kupuna, who had made the ultimate choice to take it that day.
And then this other part of this question from Keone, can we speak on the current state of the trial? So I think there's probably some posts and links on the Pu'uhuluhulu pages, but how can our audience keep the pressure to drop the charges?
Very good. That's been one of our day's focuses, is to drop the charges. And we are going, what I can say is just please stay connected to either Protect Mauna Kea Instagram or Pu'uhonua or Pu'uhuluhulu Facebook page. Either one of those will let you know. We're not quite at the stage right now. We have some other things that we need to focus on first, but those charges have not been dropped against the kupuna. So we will have a campaign where we will ask you to please be involved to help us to do just that. So just please stay connected.
We have another question from Daniel West. Thank you to everyone for a moving screening and discussion. The Mauna Kea triangular hand gesture has been a very memorable symbol of the protest. How and when did it begin?
I love that question because there's so much sometimes, you know, that sign can mean different things depending on where you are in the world, you know, so very quickly, because I'm not sure how much time we have, but that sign, as I recall it in my experience, for me, really took hold at the Ahu across the street of the Mount of Mauna Kea. And the Ahu is the stone altar where we would lay our prayers, make our announcements to the Mauna, lift our request and our unification to the mountain from. And what we would do there is put our hands up in a triangle like a mountain, because it also is a hand motion that is done in our ancient traditional dances as well. We do have this motion in some of our papu numbers especially, but we would hold our hands up to the summit and we would put the pu'u that you can see, the hills on the top of the mountain, into the triangle. And then wherever we would go around the world, whenever we put our hands up, we could still see the summit in our triangle. So we would say, no matter where we in the world, when we put our hands up, the Mauna is always with us. We are always the Mauna. So it's really a beautiful and deep gesture for us that means that we are the Mauna walking, no matter where we are. All we have to do is put our hands up and see our Mauna in it, and we know that we are the Mauna. So that's how that sign kind of has evolved for us. And that was probably in the 2015 stance for sure.
New message. What an interesting answer. Thank you so much. Is from Daniel West in the chat.
Mahalo, Daniel. It is the answer straight from one who stands on that Mauna for the last 10 years with my hands up in a triangle. Thank you, Daniel.
I just want to circle back to Bernard Granger's question as well. There's a lot to unpack and that we don't have time for, unfortunately, in regards to science and power. And I just want to last time share my screen. There are 3 books I really recommend for those who want to take a deeper look at this complicated issues. So I'm just going to share real quick. I recommend these. This is Science Set Free, 10 Paths to New Discovery. This is Rupert Sheldrake. You have Mind and Cosmos, Why the Materialist Neo-Darwinian Conception of Nature is Almost Certainly False. That's a little academic. And this is a really good one, which is The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, 50th Anniversary and Edition, Thomas S. Kuhn. And so what we find is that science and power, politics is intermeshed, and it's a fight that we continue to stand against. So Amber says, but purchase from your local bookstore. Yes. If you don't want to give money to Jeff Bezos. Okay, so I know you have other appointments in your day, so we want to just give a big mahalo to all our panelists for taking the time and to give themselves to this event. Mahalo nui. And all the links and things I'm sure we'll share in a follow-up email. Please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, Halavai NYC, Pu'uluhulu, Protect Mauna Kea, Uprooted and Rising New York, yeah, and stay in touch. And we're gonna close with a chant if we may. Sure. And
are you guys all ready? Yeah.
Hi.
So this is the chant that we ended each aha with for over 8 months, 3 times a day. This is one of those chants that I said really was inspired by 2015, June 24th, the pillars who stood in lines on the Mauna and turned back the police that day. And that's pivotal when you know that you have the ability to really truly protect the mountain or whatever you're standing for, that we write the chants and the stories and the songs that are going to remind us when those times that we think that perhaps we won't be able to do it, or we're just exhausted, or we're weary, and 24/7 is just, just enshrouded us. And then you have a chant that's going to say, pick yourself up and just, you got to do what you got to do here. And so this is our chant to call upon the whole world, starting with our own people and all people, and to remind ourselves that we are indeed pillars, and no matter who we are, we descend from brave warriors, from kings, from queens, from warriors, from farmers, from fishermen, from artisans, from all people who are fierce in the love of the land, else we still wouldn't be there. And we say that we stand strong as mountains. We are those mountains. We are those rocks standing. We are the foundation under our feet. And we are the water protectors for all mountains and all waterways. And we rise like a mighty wave. So we'll close out with one of these. Let's get ready. And so if you're out there and you know this chant, kukulu is the word for pillar, and it's the main post of a house. And our mountain is the main post of the earth for us. And we are the main post to protect that mountain, even though really the mountain is truly protecting us. E na hoa aina, e na hoa velolike, e na hoa pili, e na hoa alo, aloha aina, kukulu e na, kukulu e ha e, kukulu. He mau maka, koe na maka ka eo, e hu, he kuhukia I mauna, ku, he poha kuku, ku e, he ili kapualo, ha, he koa wai e ola, e hu, 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 hu. Paikalima, paikalima, paikalima. Eo, eo, ea.
Oh, ea.
Aloha aina.
Aloha
Aloha
aina.
aina.
Aloha aina.
Aloha
Aloha
aina.
Aina.
Aloha aina.
Eo, everybody. Mahalo nui. Stay connected. Be ready for tomorrow.
Mahalo nui,
Mahalo.
everybody, our panelists, Chris. Mahalo from the bottom of our heart. We are so honored to not only be able to screen this film, but to have all of that mana'o from all of these strong wahine. Thank you so much. Reminding everybody that this program still goes on. We have next week on the 23rd, Yuri Kojiyama's Legacy of Black and Asian American Solidarity, a conversation with Akemi Kojiyama. We're going to touch upon what's happening not only previously to us, but also bringing us to today and the wonderful things that are happening and activating in each of our neighborhoods. So please join us next week, and mahalo.
And the 30th, Hi Hawaii.
Yes, on the 30th, Hi Hawaii.
Mahalo nui.